The Springboks have another injury. Frans Malherbe now joins Damian Willemse and Jan-Hendrik Wessels in the injury room. The question is, how do these new call-ups fit into the Springbok squad and who replaces Frans Malherbe? If you're new around here, my name's Jordan Burrs. Welcome to Jordan Burrs Rugby, where we chat everything South African rugby. If you haven't, please hit that subscribe button, leave this video a like, and as always, drop your opinions down in the comments. Let's get in to this video. So over the last week, the Springboks have picked up quite a few injuries. After Rassie Erasmus announced the 34-man squad that will be touring the UK to play Scotland, England and Wales, a couple of injuries have come through and a couple of high profile injuries in that. Now the first one was Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who was named as a utility forward for the Springboks, a guy who can play prop as well as hooker, and as we've seen now with the replacements that have sort of come in, is a very high prospect sort of looked at Springbok player, because he got injured and Rassie Erasmus brought in two players to replace him. Again, maybe showing how valuable it is to be versatile in the Springbok setup. So Jan-Hendrik Wessels got injured against Scarlets when he played for the Bulls, and then Rassie Erasmus brought in Johan Grobler and Volko Low also from the Bulls to replace Jan-Hendrik Wessels, and then moved the squad up to a 35-man squad instead of a 34-man squad. Now, Johan Grobler did play in the Rugby Championship against, he played against Portugal, he also played against Australia, and he was sort of that third choice hooker. Now, with the squad that Rassie Erasmus selected for the UK, we have Bongi Mbonambe, Malcolm Marx, and we had Jan-Hendrik Wessels, who was sort of that third replacement hooker, as well as a prop. Now, Johan Grobler is just going to fit right back in to that role that he was playing in the Rugby Championship as sort of that third hooker. Whether he gets game time or not on this tour is probably unlikely unless Bongi or Malcolm pick up an injury, but I don't think he's going to get much game time, if any, but it will be a good experience for him to sort of go over to the UK, spend that time with the Springboks and get into the system a little bit more. Then Volko Low, who last played for the Springboks back in 2021, where he played his 14th test match. So he is somewhat of an experienced Springbok, having 14 caps under his belt. And he's been playing some phenomenal rugby for the Bulls over the last couple of seasons and has definitely been knocking on the door for that Springbok call-up again. It's going to be interesting to sort of see where he fits in now, because we've got Volko Low, we've got Ox, we had Frans Malherbe, we have Gerrit Steenekamp, Vincent Koch and Thomas du Toit. So Frans now going out is another worry for the Springboks. Do they bring in a direct replacement, another prop, or do they look elsewhere? We are going to discuss that a little bit further in the video, and I do have a couple of interesting suggestions. So Johan Grobler and Volko Low came in for Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Then the Stormers played Glasgow on Saturday, and Damian Willemse ended up going off in the first half. And while Dobbo, the Stormers coach, didn't think it was too bad of an injury, maybe a week or two, he's now been ruled out of the entire UK series because he's picked up a groin injury, which is just so heartbreaking for Damian Willemse. I mean, he played in the 2023 Rugby World Cup. He then got injured at the beginning of the season, has missed all the test matches for the Springboks so far this season. He comes back, he's in very good form, and then he had 40 minutes of rugby left to play, and then he would have been on a plane to the UK playing with the Springboks. He ends up getting injured. So very unlucky. But that also now sort of opens a can of worms just a little bit, because now we have Willie Leroux and Apelele Fassi who can play that 15 role. So my thinking is Apelele Fassi is probably going to start the majority of the games with Willie coming off of the bench, and this is also an opportunity for Willie to maybe pick up his 100th cap on this tour. We also have to ask the question, Damian Willemse was the utility back that the Springboks love to use, and we've seen now with the replacement of Jan-Hendrik Wessels how important having that utility and versatility in the Springboks setup is. Damian Willemse could have played 10, 12 or 15, and he is that guy that would sort of move position if Willie Leroux had to come on in that 15 jersey. If someone had to go and play number 10, that's what Damian Willemse's role is. So we're going to sort of have to plug that hole. Interestingly, Rassie Erasmus called up Cameron Hanekom to replace Damian Willemse. So definitely not a like-for-like replacement, but we have been asking for Cameron Hanekom's shot in the Springbok lineup. We asked at the beginning of the season, Springbok season, he continued to play some very good rugby, and now he finally gets his opportunity. But again, we have to ask the question, where does he fit in to that starting lineup or even on the bench, right? So if you look at the number 8s, we got Jasper Visser, Kwagga Smith and Ulrich Low. Jasper and Ulrich have sort of been running that number 8 jersey, one starting on the bench, one starting, then Kwagga's sort of been an impact player coming off of the bench. Cameron Hanekom can also play 6 and 7 potentially, but then you got Sia, you got Peter Steff, you got Marco van Staden who's in the group. So there's a lot of competition in that loose trio in the Springbok squad already, and to bring in another loose forward into that mix is going to be very interesting to see how Rassie Erasmus selects the starting 6, 7, 8 positions, and then who sort of comes on from the bench. Could we be looking at a 7-1 split potentially with 3 loose forwards on the bench to really provide that impact? But I do think Cameron Hanekom is going to get some game time, whether he comes off from the bench, whether he starts a game. It's probably highly unlikely that he's going to start a game, but whether he comes on off the bench is going to be very interesting to see, because he's been playing some really, really good rugby for the Bulls. But now with Cameron Hanekom replacing Damian Willemse and Frans Malherbe getting injured, there is a conversation to say that maybe a backline player should replace Frans, right? Let me give you the breakdown of Frans Malherbe's injury and sort of where the Springboks are stood at the minute. So he left the field with an ankle injury in the 50th minute, hasn't joined the Springbok squad, who left yesterday on Sunday to travel to the UK. So he's still in South Africa, still awaiting results on sort of how bad this injury is. Dobbo again said he thinks it's going to be a couple of weeks, but we have no indication to whether it's going to be a couple of weeks or if it's going to be similar to that of Damian Willemse. So Frans could still play if he can recover sort of in the next week and then fly over to the UK. But I think if it's longer than a week and a half, then Rassie Erasmus is going to look to replace him in the Springbok squad. Now, if we look at our props in the Springbok squad at the moment, Volkolo and Vincent Koch are the specialist tight heads. Ox and Gerrit Steenekamp are the specialist loose heads. And then Thomas du Toit is that utility prop that can play both tight or loose heads. So we do technically have enough props, right? We have 4 to start, and then we have an extra one with Thomas du Toit. So there is an argument to say that maybe they don't bring up a prop to replace Frans Malherbe. It is a little bit risky just because props have a higher risk of getting injured than a backline player does. So they might bring in another prop, and that's probably the most likely scenario if Frans Malherbe doesn't come right. But if we replace him with a backline player, then we can start introducing players like Jordan Hendrickse or Kieran Horn to sort of increase that utility in the backline that we lost with Damian Willemse. I mean, Jordan Hendrickse has been playing some phenomenal rugby for the Sharks over the past couple of months. Kieran Horn has been in that Springbok system. He played against Portugal. Yes, Jordan Hendrickse only played against Wales that first test of the season, but he can play 15. He plays 10 for the Sharks. He can also slot into that number 12 position. So I don't think it's a bad shot to maybe call up Jordan Hendrickse to sort of replace that utility that Damian Willemse gave the Springboks. But like I said, it's probably more likely that Frans Malherbe gets replaced with another prop, but it is an interesting conversation to have. If you were Rassie Erasmus, who would you be selecting for Frans Malherbe in the prop department, as well as maybe a backline department to sort of even those numbers out? Let me know down in the comments. It's a very interesting time in Springbok rugby with these couple of injuries, but I am looking forward to this November tour. Let me know your opinions down in the comments. Leave this video a like, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take it easy. Peace.